Hey, guess what? Time is running out, and we're betting you don't want to miss the opportunity for regular, ongoing connection with us, along with a supportive community of other blended family couples just like you. Mm-hmm. Right now, you can join our Blending Together community, but you've got to act fast because the doors are closing at midnight on October 8th Pacific Time. Now, Blending Together, it's a supportive community uniquely designed just for blended family couples.
Mm-hmm. We've educated, equipped, and supported hundreds of couples navigating the unique challenges of blending a family. Mm-hmm. Now, we're inviting you to join our community and experience the transformation that awaits you. Mm-hmm. Blending Together is not just another community. It's a place where you'll find practical, real-life strategies for building unity as a couple.
And creating more connection as a family.
Experiencing partnership in parenting.
And even dealing with a difficult ex.
Blending Together is a safe, growth-focused space where you get to connect with us, and maybe more importantly, with other blended family couples who truly understand what you're going through.
That's right.
Along the way, you'll discover practical tools, guidance, and hope that empower you to find a future full of confidence and connection.
And when you join Blending Together, you're going to gain access to a variety of resources like our private Facebook group and our online learning platform, monthly coaching meetings, monthly Q&As, and you'll even get to vote on the content for our monthly workshops.
Mm-hmm. Blending a family can often leave couples feeling alone or isolated, and quality support can sometimes be expensive. That's why we're offering you access to all of this for less than $1 a day, because every blended family deserves the opportunity to thrive, regardless of their budget.
For sure. So join us in the Blending Together community and unlock the secrets to successful blending. Together, we can create a future filled with hope, connection, and peace. But don't wait to click the link in the show notes. Remember, the doors are going to be closing October 8th at midnight Pacific, and you don't want to miss out on this unique opportunity to create the future you really want alongside other couples who genuinely get it. Hey, we can't wait to meet you there.
Because if you aren't mindful about prioritizing your time, your energy, and how you make decisions, you can make some easy wrong turns that will negatively impact your marriage as well as the sense of stability your kids experience in your home.
Right.
This can make or break the future of your blended family. It's that important.
Absolutely. Welcome to the Blended Family Breakthrough Podcast. We're your hosts, Mike and Kim.
We believe in a world where blended families can experience a future full of hope, connection, and peace.
That's why we offer tools, strategies, and guidance that move you from a place of confusion and conflict to experiencing a life of confidence and connection.
We're so glad you're joining us for authentic and sometimes comical conversations as we cover everything from romance to parenting, and yes, even dealing with that difficult ex.
So if you're ready to experience breakthrough in your blended family, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey there, welcome, and thanks for choosing to spend a little bit of time with us today. Mm-hmm. We continue to be humbled by your engagement and your feedback.
Yes.
You know, we recently heard from Anna in a review over on Apple Podcasts who said that she's been searching for resources for 2 years and nothing compared to our shows. Anna says this is a must listen for anyone coming into a step-family relationship of any kind. Man, Anna, thank you for those encouraging words.
Yes.
If you haven't left a review over on Apple Podcasts yet, why not do that now? Mm-hmm. Just scroll down to the ratings and reviews section in your app and tap write a review. And while you're at it, tap a star rating for us as well. We're really grateful for your support and feedback. All right, hon, let's hop into the discussion for today.
Great. We're going to spend our time today focusing on strategies for making your marriage the foundation of your blended family. Which on the surface, it seems like it should be pretty simple. But as we've all come to realize, it's not as simple or easy as we might think.
Right.
And there are some reasons why this is so challenging that we need to uncover. So first, let's start by recognizing why the structure of a blended family sets us up to experience these challenging dynamics when it comes to positioning the adults, your couple relationship, as the foundation of the home. It can
Absolutely.
be really challenging.
Yeah, for sure. It's important to understand how normal this struggle is and why we're experiencing the whole thing in the first place.
Exactly.
That can kind of help us to reframe expectations and accept that we need to approach our unique dynamic with care and a well thought out strategy.
Absolutely.
This is something you don't want to try to force or just try to wing it, because that often ends up creating more disconnection and pain. So let's unpack some of the complexities for just a moment. Every blended family starts out with their relationships sort of out of balance, or what Ron Deal calls reordered. So the natural progression of first family relationships always starts with a couple who then become parents together, right? The couple relationship is established first. The parental relationship is secondary.
Yeah. But in a step family, that's reversed. The bio-parent-child relationships have come first.
Yeah.
They've got more history and a deeper connection. They're bonded by blood, and they have that strong sense of family identity and belonging just within their bio unit.
Right.
So right out of the gate, blended couples start with those solid parent-child bonds, and often it feels that their couple relationship is secondary to those pre-existing relationships they each have with their kids.
Right.
So again, we want to emphasize that this is normal.
Right. And most couples tend to believe that the marriage should be the foundation of the family and therefore should be the highest priority, even right out of the gate.
Right.
And that makes sense when you're thinking about first family dynamics. But a blended family starts off with a unique challenge due to these reordered relationships. The blended couple doesn't yet have that solid marital foundation, and the parent-child relationships are already well established in that relational foundation of the individual bio units.
Exactly. And this reality can be even more profound when a parent has spent a significant amount of time being a single parent who kind of poured themselves into their kids. This is really common. So following the separation from their former spouse, their whole world revolved around their kids.
Right.
And now their kids are kind of used to receiving high volumes of focused time and attention from their parent, possibly even more than they would have in a first family dynamic when you think about it.
Yep.
Single parents and their kids go through a lot together, and they often form really tight bonds. And sometimes children in this situation end up with a lot of power and control in the home. They get to weigh in on decisions that normally would have been made by the parents in a first family dynamic.
Right. So when a parent recouples or remarries, it's a tough transition, not just for the kids who are used to making all kinds of decisions in the home and enjoy having their parent all to themselves,
Right.
but it's also difficult for the parent who's worked really hard over the years to hold things together and make their kids feel valued and loved and heard and all of that. So we've got to remember that. A remarriage can trigger insecurity and fear of losing these close connections and established routines that have become lifelines for both child and the parent.
Yeah. I mean, no wonder all of this can be so tough, right? I mean, blended family couples are dealing with this relational imbalance. Bio parents have solid bonds that predate the marriage, and yet somehow they need to honor their new spouse and elevate their marriage as the foundation of their home, while continuing to provide stability and connection for their kids. And this is no easy task. I know that from personal experience. Most of us feel like we have to choose either one or the other, either the kids or my new spouse, like that trapped teammate.
Yeah.
And today will help you find a little more balance so you don't have to constantly feel like you have to make that either or choice. Just a few simple strategies will help you rebalance the relationships in your home And over time, make your marriage the foundation of your blended family.
Yeah.
And like I said before, this is an important topic. We cannot discount this, because if you aren't mindful about prioritizing your time, your energy, and how you make decisions, you can make some easy wrong turns that will negatively impact your marriage as well as the sense of stability your kids experience in your home.
Right.
This can make or break the future of your blended family. It's that important.
Absolutely. Honey, you just mentioned the term trapped teammate. And I just want to add that if you're not familiar with that term, we highly encourage you to go listen to episode 139 so you can learn a little bit more about that dynamic that a bio parent gets stuck in the middle, kind of feeling trapped. And all they really want is for everyone to be happy. But they feel like they're that kind of rope in the tug of war between their kids and their spouse.
Right.
Now, in that episode, we also share how stranded the step parent can feel sometimes. They're kind of stuck on the outside of these pre-existing bio relationships and often can feel like a stranger in their own home. We've seen that every couple is going to experience this trapped teammate, stranded stranger dynamic to some degree or another. And it typically creates a sense of disconnection and some pretty painful realities that you might not have been prepared to handle. I know we weren't, and it's been really tough.
It has.
So go back and check out episode 139 if you haven't already, and we'll put a link in the show notes for you. Yeah.
All right. So let's dive into some strategies to help you make your marriage the foundation of your home.
Okay, foundation. Let's consider that word for a second, just for a moment. Foundation. One dictionary defines foundation as the natural base or groundwork of anything. Think about that in the context of reordered relationships for a blended family. There's a natural base and groundwork that's already been established long before the two of you came together as a couple. And if you think about the foundation of a structure, for instance, a house, that's pretty solid, right? It's fairly indestructible unless you take some drastic measures to break it up with heavy equipment that demolishes and destroys that foundation.
Right.
Now, here's the thing. We don't want to demolish that original parent-child foundation.
No.
That only leads to relational damage, and it's not going to provide the right kind of groundwork to effectively rebalance the relationships and eventually shift your marriage into the primary foundational position.
So we're not going in and breaking up the original foundation. We're actually creating something new here, a new foundation. That's the goal.
Yeah, that's right. This makes me think of something that I've been watching unfold for several months, and it gives me a bit of a word picture for this. I like word pictures. So can I take a second to go on a bit of a tangent, and hopefully I am able to tie it back in?
Sure.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right. Okay. We'll see what happens. So hang in with me here. So I've got this mentor, and I meet up with him for breakfast every Saturday morning that we're both in town. His name's Scott. Now, for the past several years, Scott and his wife Peggy have lived on a piece of property that they bought a while back, and they've had the idea for years of building a house on it for as long as they've owned it.
Yeah, it's been a while too.
In the interim, they've been living in a really nice, like 1-bedroom apartment, basically above a barn on their property. Well, they call it the barn, but it's much more than that.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So like on the lower level of the barn, they've created this beautiful party hall with a full kitchen attached. It's got a great fireplace, tons of space, but it feels really cozy. It's got this really cool feel.
Yeah.
And they host all kinds of specifically family events.
Yeah.
Now they've got 4 adult kids and like 15 or 20 grandkids. So when I say family events, I mean events, right? There's a lot of people here. So this past summer, after several years of living in the barn, they've decided to break ground to build a new house. It's almost complete, probably going to be moving in sometime in the next several weeks. And it's really been fun to watch the house get built. And of course, you probably know one of the first things that had to happen was all the groundwork, right? And guess what? The foundation had to be established.
Of course, yeah.
So you're probably wondering, so what, Mike? Why are you telling the story?
We all know that.
Yeah. We know the foundation has to get established with any new building project. You're right, but that's not the primary point here. The point is because of their unique dynamics and the way that their property is laid out, Rather than tearing down that old barn and breaking up that foundation, they actually focused on building something new. But it's taken a long time, and it's taken lots of decisions that they've had to figure out along the way.
Right.
And part of their discussion has been around that big family room in the barn. They've created a lot of memories in that room. Yeah. They've laughed and cried. They've played games. They've had deep conversations. Several of their grandkids don't even have any memory of grandma and grandpa being in any other living situation. Yeah. So as they've built the house, they've actually been very intentional about how they'll continue to create memories using both structures. If they want to enjoy some smaller family gatherings, they're probably going to do that in the new house. But they're also going to be honoring the value of that old barn when they pull the whole family together. I've actually been really amazed at the thoughtfulness that they've had around this.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And here's the main point. As they move forward, they're deliberately taking a both-and approach to how they honor the old memories, even as they build new memories, depending on the nature of what's going on and what their gathering's all about. It's not about either or. It's about both and. They haven't destroyed that old special place. They're simply enhancing the full capability of the whole property and enjoying both the old and the new.
Love it.
And that idea right there, it leads me to our first strategy for establishing marriage as the foundation of the home. And here it is. Commit to patiently focusing on progress. See, my friend's house project has been a long one.
Oh, yeah.
But they've been patient and they simply stayed focused on the progress ahead rather than getting hung up on impatiently wanting to move in right away.
Okay, so that's great. What I just heard is that we're focused on patience and progress as we work on adopting this both and approach to living life in our blended family property.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
When we have our expectations in line and we realize that this is going to be a somewhat slow process, we're actually setting ourselves up for success.
Yeah.
Now, honey, you and I have never had a new house built.
Right.
But I can imagine all the decisions, the big ones and the small ones that have to go into a project like that. And some things go well and as planned, and maybe some don't, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's for sure.
And so I can imagine that sometimes all the little meticulous things that need to be decided can kick up this sense of impatience, maybe even frustration or disappointment when things don't go as expected.
Yeah.
At least that's how it would be for me.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little like what we experience as blended family couples. A couple falls madly in love during that courtship stage, and then they get a vision for a new marriage. Kind of like that vision for a new house that Scott and his wife had. And then they move towards their vision of marriage or moving in together, and they vow to center their attention on the new. And they want to get there as quickly as they can because they're really excited, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It sounds really romantic, right? It's all about you and me, baby.
Of course.
Right? But it doesn't take long for problems to hit when one or more of the kids expect their bio parent to maintain those pre-existing patterns, all those things they're used to.
The old foundation.
That's right. The kids still want to live in the barn. It was nice and cozy. It was familiar over there. And when those moments hit, we've got some deliberate and thoughtful decisions to make. And that typically requires patience and a focus on simply progressing to the next step, not forcing everyone to move into the new house when it hasn't been fully built yet. Right? Imagine if Scott and Peggy decided that about halfway through the build, they were just going to move into the new house anyway. Hey, the framing's done, the roof is on, why not? Like, it's just you and me, baby. Let's go on an adventure and just move over to the new house and leave that old barn behind. Now, the thing is, we live here in the beautiful but often wet and cold Pacific Northwest.
Very wet.
I'm not so sure that that's going to last. I don't know if that's the best marriage move for Scott and Peggy. And it might be pretty miserable for the extended family, too, when they're trying to celebrate a family gathering in this biting wind and sideways rain. Right? It's just not going to work.
No, it's not going to work well at all. It sounds pretty silly, but that's the kind of thing we do sometimes as we're blending our family because we get impatient and we just want to replace that old foundation.
Yeah.
And when we do that, we miss the reality that one or more of the kids, they're actually trying their best to adapt to their parents' remarriage and accept their new step-parent, but they've got their own needs and expectations too.
Yeah.
Some of that is simply those basic needs that all kids have. And some of it is based on their past experiences with their bio parent.
Yeah.
And this is normal.
Mm-hmm.
So let me throw out an example of what this kind of thing might look like in real life, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got little Johnny and his bio dad, and they have a well-established routine of going to the batting cages on Saturday morning and grabbing breakfast afterwards. They've done this for years, and Johnny really loves this time with his dad, and he's hoping, of course, that this routine is going to continue even after the remarriage. It's important to him, and that's kind of where his expectation is.
Yeah.
And children, they really do need that one-on-one time with their bio parent because it gives them assurance and security in their relationship, which is just so important. And so a hasty disruption of those pre-existing routines is going to set the family up for trouble. We hear about it all the time.
For sure.
But imagine if Johnny's dad's new wife, his stepmom, says to her husband, hey, wait a minute, I want us to go shopping Saturday mornings. Her expectation is, we're going to do everything together now. It's you and me, right? And that trumps whatever you used to do in the past. Our relationship should be the priority.
Yeah.
So when her husband expresses a need to spend this one-on-one time with his son at the batting cages, guess what? His new wife feels like a stranded stranger. I'm getting left behind, and that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And this is a step-parent who's made that easy wrong turn of thinking that the new couple foundation can be quickly built. She's impatient and believes their blended family should work the same as a first family.
Yeah.
You and I should be calling the shots now, and your kids need to quickly adjust and adapt to the fact that you have different priorities now.
So essentially, the new step-parent discounts their partner's previous patterns and the needs of the kids, demanding that old foundation kind of gets demolished so that the new foundation, their marriage, can quickly be established.
Right.
It's as if we're kind of tearing down that old barn now, and everyone's just going to have to do everything in the new house, and they better like it, by the way.
Right. And although this might seem to make sense to the adults who have vowed to put each other first, in the long run, viewing all of these little decisions as either or rather than both and is like demolishing that pre-existing parent-child foundation. And this ends up creating all kinds of pain and turmoil within the family.
Right.
The kids start building resentment towards their new step-parent as their relationship with their bio parent is intruded on and overlooked and deprioritized. And of course, hurting kids tend to act out in one way or another, right? Yeah. Some will verbally attack the step-parent or become disrespectful and aloof. Other kids, in their pain, will withdraw from the family or even sometimes make a plea to spend less time there and more time at their other parent's house.
Absolutely. And all this will inevitably cause pain for the bio parent when their relationship with their kids starts to get strained. Their kids are pulling away from them, they're shutting down, and then they're really feeling like the trapped teammate.
Of course.
Resentment even toward their new spouse can start to grow because they've been put in this position of having to choose their spouse over their relationship with their kids.
Yeah. And this either or position is a recipe for resentment, disconnection, and a whole lot of pain for everyone.
Absolutely. Okay, so what might committing to patiently focusing on progress look like in your example with Johnny?
Good question. Well, maybe for the first 6 months of the family's blend, the couple decides together that Dad and Johnny will continue to hit the batting cages and go to breakfast on Saturday morning. And Dad's new wife chooses to use that time for her own self-care or to do something she really enjoys. Then at some point, when the time seems right, Dad might check in with Johnny and say something like, Johnny, I really enjoy our time at the batting cages on Saturday, and I'm wondering what you would think if next Saturday we invited stepmom to meet us for breakfast afterwards. Or maybe it's something like, hey, Johnny, what would you think if we went to the batting cages once a month on Saturday and played catch in the yard on weeknights?
Yeah. So that's great. I can hear some listeners going, oh, that's wonderful if I did that the first 6 months, but we've been married 5 years. Like, what are we going to do now? Well, you know what we would recommend is that we find those opportunities where we just back it up a little bit and we say, oh yeah, how can we actually create some more of this one-on-one time and just kind of reverse what we've done just for a while and then deploy the same strategy. So we're slowing or modifying kind of the pattern, but we're not doing away with it.
Right.
Or if we've been married for a while, we might be re-emerging the pattern that child is missing. But again, we're not just eliminating it. And now Johnny, in this situation, he might say, no, Dad, that's a terrible idea. And that could mean he's feeling a bit insecure, maybe not ready to give up that time with Dad. Many kids perceive their new step-parent as a threat.
Right.
But at some point, the bio-parent might need to find a way to continue meeting the son's need for this one-on-one time and also meeting his wife's need to spend time with her going shopping on Saturday morning.
Yeah, at some point, the bio-parent will need to make a shift, and this is not easy.
That's right.
But the goal is to preserve that pre-existing foundation. We're not going to demolish it. And at the same time, slowly and mindfully build up the new foundation of the marriage.
Yeah.
It's that both and, not an either or.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Are we ready? Let's move on to the next strategy, honey.
Perfect. That next strategy is to remain curious and empathetic as you build trust. Okay. So Ron Deal says that biological relationships have the built-in luxury of nonverbal connection. So parent-child attachment and family identity has been there since day one of a child's life. Love just is. But step relationships don't have that advantage. And unless people get to know one another and bring understanding and clarity to the nature of their relationship, trust will remain tentative and shallow. That reality is why we need to be empathetic and curious as we work to gradually shift our marriage into being the foundational relationship of the home. This takes a lot of time and authenticity. And through the process, we might need to let go of our own agendas and choose to put ourselves into the shoes of each individual family member.
That's right. If we want to elevate the status of the marriage without creating distance in the parent-child relationships, trust must exist in the family. We can't get around that. I'll just repeat part of Ron's quote. Unless people get to know one another and bring understanding and clarity to the nature of their relationship, trust will remain tentative and shallow. The bottom line here is that this whole process goes smoother when you've got some genuine buy-in from the kids.
That's right.
And you'll never get buy-in if their trust towards the step-parent or the new marriage is tentative and shallow.
For sure.
Without trust, your stepkids will remain guarded. They'll doubt your intentions towards them, maybe even doubt your intentions towards their parent. They may become competitive or protective and continually try to push you into that stranded stranger position.
For sure.
Making you feel like you're not welcome here. When trust is absent, mistrust takes over.
Absolutely. And it's really sad when blended families get stuck here. You know, we've worked with families where trust has never emerged in their step relationships, and it's very painful for everyone, adults and kids. Not only does the step parent stay stuck as that stranded stranger, but the bio parent stays stuck as the trapped teammate, and the kids never feel safe enough to let their guard down and just relax in their own home because they're confused, they're angry, they're hurt, and often they're somewhat resentful.
Yeah. We found that one of the most effective ways to build trust in step relationships is to gain deeper understanding for what the kids are experiencing and grow your empathy for each individual child. Even if a child is acting out towards you, rejecting you, or attempting to sabotage your marriage, the best approach is to put yourself into their shoes and approach them from a place of empathy.
Ugh, that's hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
But one place to start is by intentionally learning everything you can about what kids experience in these dynamics and how to best approach each child where they're at as you build some genuine trust.
Yeah.
Now, some of that learning might be here on the show, and we'll put a few links in the show notes to some past episodes that might be really helpful. But that's learning about kids in general in these difficult dynamics that can be really challenging. What you may need to do is pull back a bit and try to imagine what your stepchild has experienced up to this point.
Right.
It might mean that you ask your spouse more about what they noticed in that child as they navigated the divorce or the loss of that other parent. Maybe you'll ask about any other dating relationships that have occurred between the divorce until you came along, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you'll simply take what you already know and try to imagine how you would have felt if you had walked a mile in that child's shoes. This is curiosity and empathy in action.
Yeah.
As you do that, you might ask yourself, what will it take to build trust with a child who has been through these specific circumstances? Building the trust you really want takes time and patience. And when you stay focused, you can make progress.
Absolutely. Now, the opposite of all that is criticism. That often leads to labeling your stepkids. Many times when a step-parent's on the receiving end of a bad attitude in their own pain, they tend to label the stepchild as spoiled or manipulative and maybe become critical of everything the child does or doesn't do that they deem as wrong.
Right.
I get it. This isn't a fun place to be. I've been there with Annika, and I have been guilty of labeling her along the way. And it's been really challenging, and it shuts down my empathy. It shuts down my curiosity.
Right.
It's hard. And sometimes the tendency is to blame the child for your pain or even blame your new spouse for how they're parenting. And that parenting is causing me pain. Right. And while a step-parent often does have valid concerns because they see their stepkids through a different lens than the bio-parent, it simply isn't helpful to criticize in a way that's unproductive or to label the kids. It doesn't help your relationship. It doesn't help you. This actually makes the situation worse because you're now focused on compliance instead of curiosity and compassion. And when you don't get the compliance you want from your stepkids, you'll probably react in your own pain, which will naturally erode the trust you're actually trying to build. So now you're stuck, and it's an unproductive cycle of pain.
Right. That's exactly it. And one simple way to combat this so that you can stay in curiosity mode is to ask yourself, what if my stepchild isn't giving me a hard time, but they're simply having a hard time? And based on some of those past experiences you already know they've had, maybe you can remain more empathetic and curious along the way.
Right.
This is not in any way saying that we don't set limits and boundaries, but that's a subject for another discussion.
Right.
The point here is that it's your job to keep yourself centered on curiosity and empathy so you can build that trust. All right. So to begin to shift our marriage to the foundational relationship of the home, we're going to commit to patiently focusing on progress. It's going to take some time. We're going to remain curious and empathetic as we build trust. And finally, we're going to build unity together.
That's right. Build unity together. I love the way Patricia Pappernow says, pain easily trumps empathy.
Of course.
When we're in pain, it's very difficult to have empathy for anyone in our blended family. And that reality is true when we're dealing with that difficult stepchild, like we were just talking about.
Right.
And it's true with each other in our couple relationship as well, right? We probably won't be able to build a whole lot of unity in our relationship or solve problems and lead our blended family forward as a team when we're dealing with a whole lot of pain. and we can find very little empathy for each other.
Right. So we've got to find effective ways to build unity as a couple. Now, the primary places we start the coaching process with many couples is teaching them a practical process for regulating those difficult emotions that hit and to communicate effectively, resolve conflict, and problem solve together.
That's right.
These are often the places we start because all the other details and decisions around blending a family will either create progress or pain depending on how well the couple can deploy these kinds of essential skills I just mentioned.
That's right.
All of this is absolutely critical in maintaining unity. And you will need lots of unity as you build your new foundation. Without these skills, your foundation will be continually crumbling beneath your feet. There's no solid footing for your relationship because you're caught in what we call the pain cycle.
Oh, man, I hate the pain cycle.
I mean, too.
We were stuck in our own pain cycles for many years, and it really disabled us from resolving our issues, from problem solving, and actually staying united.
Yeah.
Did you know that it's physiologically impossible to stay united when you're stuck in your pain cycle? Like your brain just can't handle it.
Yeah.
And every couple tends to have stuff that triggers an emotional reaction and causes them to do unproductive things like blaming each other or shaming themselves or trying to control each other or escaping from each other.
Right.
We've done all four of those things multiple times, right? We were stuck there for way too long, but thankfully we learned a really effective communication tool that keeps us from getting caught in that pain cycle. And it moves us into a place where we're actually able to communicate, understand each other, solve problems together. Like we've learned to show up better in these really difficult moments. And these are skills that any couple can learn to deploy.
Right.
Regardless of the complexity of their issues or the depth of their pain, you actually can break free from that pain cycle. And this kind of thing is going to help you to stay focused on unity or one of the things that we call usness. You know, what's really interesting to me is I used to have this idea of, okay, we're going to get to the finish line. All the kids are going to get launched into adulthood. And then it's just going to be you and me, baby. Finally, we're there, right? I'm finding that, you know what? Parenting late teens and early 20s, the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
Like the emotions are even more intense sometimes and the struggle is more difficult. And if we hadn't learned some of this early on, I don't know where our unity would be.
I don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
Learning all of this has totally changed our marriage. So if you're struggling to create unity and you find yourself in lots of disagreements where you're rehashing the same issues over and over, we would love to help you.
That's right.
Just click the link in the show notes to schedule a free coaching call with us so that we can answer all your questions and see if our Relate Strong program is a good fit for you. Now, once you start making progress on effectively communicating together, then you can focus on working together to identify and clarify exactly who you want to become as a family. What values, character traits, and life skills do you want to instill in your home? What do you want relationships to look like? And how will you guide your kids around things like respect, responsibility, gratitude, moderation, and so on? This is the appropriate time and place for each partner to openly express those valid concerns they might have around unhealthy patterns of disrespect or whatever might be going on in a way that isn't critical or labeling. We want to address the concerns, but we don't want to get critical or label.
What we found in our years of blending a family and working with hundreds of other blended family couples is that when a couple isn't united around their values and they haven't really sat down to talk about the future they want for their family, then it's very difficult for them to build meaningful unity as a couple. They eventually end up kind of living as two separate families under one roof, which creates a lot of confusion and sometimes some double standards in the home. And that tends to happen because of what we call family culture clash. Each partner comes in with those pre-existing patterns that they and their kids are used to. their way of doing life around everything from bedtime routines and curfews to what foods are stocked in the pantry and screen time limits and all those little and big parenting decisions that come at us every single day.
Right. And those pre-existing patterns are strongly rooted.
Yeah.
Each partner comes in believing their way is the right way to operate.
Of course.
And when there are differences in how each partner operates, the couple quickly goes to battle over who's right, who's wrong, and who's going to win.
Right.
So rather than coming together to discuss what they each want and identify the common ground and where they need to find some alignment, they move into their pain cycle and a power struggle ensues.
Oh, boy.
Which often leads to conflict and not much gets resolved, unfortunately.
Yeah. And we speak about this with confidence because we've lived it.
Yeah, we have.
for many years. But we've also learned that when a couple can proactively have these crucial conversations about the most important values, the character traits and the life skills that they each want to see being lived out in their home, they can create a vision for their new blended family culture and work as a team to implement doable action steps without feeling overwhelmed.
And without overwhelming the kids or requiring too much change too quickly.
Yeah.
We need to be strategic in how we lead our blended family forward towards what we both want and establish healthy attitudes, boundaries, and expectations that honor each partner's perspective and are honoring to the kids as well.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, if this sounds like something that you really need, but you aren't sure how to go about it, we've created a very simple process that helps many couples get on the same page and move forward with more clarity and more confidence when it comes to parenting. And the truth is, you really won't be able to shift your couple relationship into being that foundational relationship of the home if you're on two different pages. When it comes to parenting, you're going to end up stuck in these power struggles, and then the kids are going to be caught in the middle as well.
And this dynamic will drive everyone to hold on to their pre-existing foundation.
That's right. I want to go back and live in the barn.
Yeah. Those bio-parent-child patterns, because it's what they know and what they're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
The bottom line here is that change is hard.
Yeah.
Changing your parenting approach or your priorities, it isn't easy, not for the adults or the kids. But you can do it if you're willing to work together to create your new family culture and deliver that to the kids in a positive way. And we're here to help you do that. Just click that link in the show notes to schedule your free coaching call, and we can get you started.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've covered a lot today, and maybe you've gained a little hope in making your marriage the foundation of your blended family, and maybe some confidence that you can deploy these 3 strategies. Commit to patiently focusing on progress. Remain curious and empathetic as you build trust, and then build unity together.
That's right. And if you need some help, just click that link in the show notes to schedule the free coaching call with us. It would really be a privilege for us to support you. Hey, thanks so much again for spending some time with us today. That's going to make this episode a wrap.
Until next time.